my god, it's another Bocchi the Rock video essay. The most popular threads on Bocchi the Rock are like a dark abyss of confessionals, where all the self-loathing and guilt that comes with isolation and introversion are found in a coven of rejected femcel weirdos who were raised on Princess Jellyfish fanfic and K-On! High School Girl musical AMVs. But we have risen from our bedroom rotting sessions because we finally found the hope core that we needed with Bocchi the Rock. And I finally found my people in the socially anxious, manic pixie dream girl high school losers and copeaholic nihilistic millennial failures, all literally banded together through the power of rock and roll music, and oh my fucking god, it's the coolest shit ever. Bocchi is actually just like me. Bocchi the Rock gets that existential torture that is social anxiety. And there's no quick fix with cute girly things or spontaneous bonding friendship moments, or showing off how cool you really are by just being yourself when you're freaking terrified of everyone else. So there's nothing more inspiring than an anime that really tells you about yourself, especially with all of their insane internal monologues. All of these characters really desire something more in their lives, despite all of their glaring but relatable faults. And they all have these inspiring talents that sends me reeling back to my loner lover girl Asian Kung Fu Generation playlist for my long train rides home from high school. Through music, poetry, writing, and playing guitar, I could escape away from the bullies or the responsibilities or just that lingering self-doubt. But of course, somehow it still felt impossible to shake that loneliness and involuntary solitude. And so many communities talk about their wound of loneliness being reopened when they watch this anime, despite it being such a happy-go-lucky slice of life that's filled with all of these comedic antics. We end up relating to these main characters, but we low-key also end up fucking envying them too, because these characters at least have each other and they're able to fulfill this purpose. And they're able to find their sound and their voice in a band even when you can't really find your place in life. Bocchi the Rock really struck a chord with me all the way from the first episode, with our main character Hitori, also known as Bocchi, being the fictional anime twin flame to my dramatic teenage life crisis. From the moment that Bocchi picks up a guitar, she forms this whole new identity with this amazing talent, but she's still too damn scared to share it with the rest of the world. And no matter how hard that girl can shred, it still comes off as her being a total otaku nerd for guitar. And Hitori is a totally awkward, paranoid, pessimistic, and socially anxious dork. There's a real fear that comes with Hitori's social anxiety that's not just an anime trope. It's a looming self-destructive dread that goes from cute to concerning real quick. And I started to seriously recognize the circumstances that sends Hitori on a panicked spiral of doom with every social interaction, where she's overthinking that everybody is tearing apart her every insecurity out of some unreasonable sadistic hatred. And whenever I've experienced this feeling, it feels like everything is my fault and there was something that I said or did or didn't do that made this person secretly disappointed or disgusted in me. And all this ends up doing is exacerbating the symptoms of social anxiety to be further isolated and anxious about even talking to friends or going to social events or even texting or having online interactions. And in reality, this feeling really fucking sucks, but when Bocchi is going through it, it is so hilariously relatable. Like, holy shit, this anime is comedic gold with impeccable timing even in the most serious moments when you don't expect it, and it actually works. And these malfunctioning burnouts and traumatic emotional breakdowns that happen in my mind all come screeching on the screen with Hitori's multi-dimensional glitches and abstract meltdowns, and even in the euphoric way that music can finally color her world in a way that she understands for once. Remember that social anxiety is a real disease, and what also ends up bringing Hitori when she becomes Bocchi the Rock into music is when she sees other talented performers and musicians who also have social anxiety. And even if they perform in front of hundreds if not thousands of fans every single night, they still have that same anxiousness and awkwardness in interviews when they're not in their musical element. But for Hitori, she sees a band as a place that even introverts can get a chance to shine. I definitely felt a little bit too seen by this anime, even in the way that Hitori starts planning out going to school with all of her band merch and her guitar, piling up all of this flashy gear over her frumpy uniform, desperately desperately trying to attract friends who have the same interest as her. Even if she ends up choking up trying to interact with anyone past the cringy small talk, Hitori still feels so cool seeing her own reflection becoming that cool, badass rocker chick that she's always wanted to be. And I don't actually think that Bocchi became a guitarist because she just wanted to be popular and attract people with her Guitar Hero coolness, but also to have a chance to express herself as an introvert through something other than words, where she can be loud and wild through the intensity and passion of rock and roll. Bocchi dreams of actually starting her own band and joining a community, not just being an internet anonymous prodigy. And I even related to this for the very reason that I started this anime channel. I long for a community who loves anime as much as I do, and don't only want to enjoy it, but analyze it and compare it to reality and politics and philosophy. But I feel like if I say all of this at a party, I'm gonna sound like an obsessive, rambling socialist nerd. And even worse, that people will realize that I'm an Asian cartoon-loving freak. Sure, when I do feel cool and accepted, it's so validating and it feels like the highest of highs. But when I feel rejected or I'm over-scrutinizing myself because I think that someone else is judging me, it feels so heart-wrenchingly terrifying that I just want to puke and run off of a cliff and disembowel myself on the spot whenever I say something cringe. And that's why I hold myself up in my room perfecting my anime video essays, so that way I can finally express myself the way that I want to in this safe space. And I created all of this online through this persona the same way that Bocchi did with her guitar channel. But I admit that sometimes I feel more like my true self when I'm online or when I'm performing on stage than in real life, and that's something that I'm kind of working on still, so that way I can understand that this duality is still part of my authentic self, even when I'm a little awkward or I want to disassociate into my favorite places of music or anime. I can also add from my experiences that learning how to play guitar is a very personal process, and it's very easy to end up holding yourself hostage in order to perfect your craft before you show it to anyone and sound like a total loser whenever you make a mistake. But a lot of the time, so many musicians end up never debuting because of this self-consciousness. Bocchi definitely wants to leave her mark in her youth, and I felt the same way when I was in high school trying to patch together a band as a socially awkward, anime-obsessed black girl. Back when I was a teenager, God, that makes me sound so old. Back in my day, but back then, anime like Nana and Beck and K-On! Were all so impactful to building the life that I desired as a musician. And it was more than just a desire for fame, but something to allow me to tell my own story, and even get a chance to express my alter egos when I'm performing with my guitar on stage. What's beautifully magical about actual music anime is that it shows the real grind and passion of being a musician in real life. It all comes with the pain of grueling calluses from nights of practice, or comparing yourself to your idols and then your peers, and grappling with the reality of trying to get managers and companies and clubs to actually respect you and front the money that makes all of this happen. But even through all of the successes and struggles, I actually did make lifelong friends through my experiences in the music industry. And after I learned how to share who I really was with the people around me, fast forward 10 years later, and music still has allowed me to connect with more people. Whether it's on stage or with my band or with jam sessions with complete strangers. That's where the beauty of creating and sharing fills the void for artists and introverts alike to authentically be themselves. But just like Bocchi, I realized that in order to achieve this, you have to actually put yourself in the spaces where the magic happens. Which already seems impossible because our main character isn't just a little shy or introverted. She is fatalistically ridden with social anxiety, and she just erupts in instability even when she just expects contact with another person. That ends up rumbling her into a breakdown, ruminating over every possible thing that could go wrong. The mental gymnastics between Bocchi's delusions of rockstar grandeur, fighting against the debilitating loneliness and self-sabotage that she has to go through every single day. This is one of the first hurdles that she has to get over before she even tries to reimagine this depressing part of her life. And it's already so rough when you're just starting out and you don't really know a lot of musicians, let alone studios or venues that would even allow a kid to walk into the place. But that's where the live house becomes the home stage for Bocchi to meet her future bandmates and go through all of the hilariously clumsy adjustments in order for her to get to the point where she can be free on guitar and express her true colors. Except that Bocchi actually kinda sucks. Yeah. I mean, Bocchi is definitely an incredible guitar player, and she's way better than me even in a fictional world, but that's only when she's playing in her closet to her subscribers online. However, playing with an ensemble of other musicians is an entirely different ballpark. With silent communication and cues through eye contact and subtle gestures, Bocchi's social anxiety can't even let her have a straightforward conversation, let alone perform in person in front of a measly crowd that you can barely count on one hand. This is where all the Easter eggs for musicians or musically interested people end up making this anime so rich with detail. From referencing music arrangements and balancing out the tempo, to all of the ways that our main character needs to personally develop in order to interact with people and create a bond that makes a band great. And I'm not gonna lie, even on my best nights where I feel like I can come out of my shell and be my own self on stage, my social battery still gets really overwhelmed from putting myself out there. I really cherish all of the good energy, but all of that anxiety does not go away overnight. And it's still really hard to make genuine friendships even when you feel like you've become that cool rocker girl that checks all the boxes that you dreamed of when you were in high school. Even the dread of having Bocchi's musical identity challenged by having other musicians to perform with or compete with continues to be an unfortunately nerve-wracking reality even when she starts to blend in so much in this music scene. Comparison really is the thief of joy, and it's really hard to get out of your head when you're constantly thinking that people are better looking than you or more talented than you or more outgoing than you. But it's still so encouraging to see Bocchi be brave enough to take the first step. It's Bocchi who spent years learning how to play the guitar and finally being able to get a following of people who respect her as a musician without even knowing who she is. She's the one who decides to go to school with her guitar, and it was with her own willpower that she showed up to that gig with enough confidence in her skill to just jump into a band and perform in front of strangers even though she knows that she has anxiety. This kind of shit doesn't just get cured overnight. You have to actually make the effort to change your circumstances even if you can't really change who you are. And we have an interesting mix of introverted and extroverted personalities, and the little tribe that ends up adopting Hitori and naming her Bocchi when they bring her in as their new guitarist. With our outgoing, naively optimistic drummer, sarcastic lone wolf bassist, the stubborn, confrontationally underrated rhythm guitarist, I think this character lineup is so special in comparison to other previous generations of music anime, especially in comparison to K-On! That Bocchi has blatant similarities to. In fact, I'd actually say that Bocchi the Rock is mostly spin-off copies of the K-On! Cast, except with their own secret recipe to social anxiety, outcast attitudes, and just not fitting into others' expectations. Bocchi is pretty much Yui if all of the blissfully ignorant joy was sucked out of her existence. But at least Bocchi channeled all of her social clumsiness into her prodigal guitar skills before she even joined the band. But Bocchi and Yui actually share the fact that they struggle to commit and they have to learn how to do the real work to find and maintain friendships and relationships. And through music and performing and cooperating with other people, they actually end up gaining some redeemable social skills. Nichika is our token extrovert who adopts Bocchi into the band, and she undeniably has to be related to Ritsu from K-On!, our hyper-energetic drummer. And they both act as the source to this dream to actually become rock stars. And they run like this engine for their band while being in tune with everyone else's personalities. And surprisingly, Nichika could be considered the most mature member of her band. Nichika is optimistic, but she's still realistic. Then comes our stoic dark-haired bassist. Ryo is actually more of a voluntary loner than an introvert, and she really enjoys her solitude without giving a fuck about what anyone else thinks, even if it comes off as standoffish or antisocial. Mio, on the other hand, can be frantically timid and is a total stickler for the rules. But just like Ryo, Mio is definitely entertained by being an entertainer and being a part of this rambunctious group of music lovers. And best for last is Kita, who's the adorable but fiery second guitarist, just like Azusa from K-On! And they both have this secret competitive heart to want to lead the band, but with both of these characters, their insecurities and sense of perfectionism often sabotages them. And with Kita in particular, even though she seems like the ideal social butterfly, she's a chronic people pleaser and fears judgment and exclusion, probably even more so than Bocchi. And I find it very heartwarming of her character as well as Azusa's character that they both end up finding some kind of inspiration from the clumsier character that works as the lead guitarist in their band to make them want to be better as well, even if it kind of means them taking a back seat from what they really want to be. they end up working harder towards their potential when they see someone just clumsily fighting their way through it no matter what. And don't get me wrong, I'm not trying to say that K-On! Is better because it came first. And it had this iconic new wave in this genre of cute girls doing cute things with a genuinely banging soundtrack. And I'm also not saying that it's not as good as Bocchi because it doesn't have as many serious concepts or realistic themes. If anything, I really say that they both have a similar level of impact and have created a cult following that has lasted for years. And not just because of the cute anime girls thing, but because of that slice of life formula that just creates joy and takes you back to this vulnerable place in your youth, but this time with the bonds of friendship and acceptance that rocks with all of your flaws and little quirks, and having peers who respect your boundaries but still dream for the stars and are going along this journey with you. In fact, some of these bandmates end up jumping into these delusional scenes, really empathizing with how hard it is to pull someone out of this jungle of paranoia. When it comes to Bocchi and Yui, I almost envy them for having such a supportive friend group. But because they're so relatable, they kind of also give you that feeling that these could be your friends too. And you can find your people out there, even if you're a ditzy weirdo or a socially anxious loser, it's gonna be okay. All of the adults in this anime actually play a pivotal role in these young girls' development, in a way that makes every anime parent look like a deadbeat in front of our cool adoptive band moms. I have never felt more inspiration and compassion than from the older women and female musicians in this anime who really become role models, even if they're slobbering drunks or college dropouts or hippie street musicians. Kikuri is my favorite character and an absolute queen on bass in her sick and sexy psychedelic rock band, Sick Hack, where she's the most amazing frontwoman. She becomes this lovably intoxicated older sister character, and she really shows Bocchi a future where she can be bold and brave enough to even just whip out her guitar and play on the street. Kikuri really pushes Bocchi to open up and face her fears about her social anxiety, and she admits that she was just as shy and timid when she was Bocchi's age, even though she admittedly still uses a lot of alcoholism to cope with her still persisting social anxiety. Music has at least allowed her to stop fearing the audience and gave her this laid-back nature where she's in her element when she's playing her music. And of course, after she's had a couple bottles. I was practically holding my breath when I saw how cool the exposition for her band Sick Hack was in this anime. It wasted no time encapsulating the wonder and excitement that comes with experiencing new music in the indie rock scene. And I think it's so special having these adult characters be women in their 20s just like me too. Like the drummer's older sister Seika, who runs the Livehouse Starry, along with her questionably platonic, very attractive goth girlfriend, lets these teenagers play in her venue, which would almost never happen without an adult who really believes in music and would risk their business and reputation for some budding artists. And Seika guides them through the challenges of the music industry where no one gives a fuck about your problems because the show must go on. She helps these girls confront what they really want and how to get past these milestones, and also learning how to deal with failure while staying humble and supporting your band. Women like Kikuri and Seika are like the light at the end of the tunnel for what your future can really look like. Because when all those teenage years are over, it's not the end, it's a new chapter. And through these older women, Bocchi was able to have a glimpse of what her future could look like with social anxiety and alcoholism and all. But I do seriously think there's a need for cool and relatable role models who've been there and gone through the mistakes and the rough patches and don't forget the way that felt like when you're growing up as a teenager and going through it. Because so much of these younger generations end up manufacturing their personalities through online aesthetics or weird niche labels or some other social media trend. But they're suddenly surprised when they're still struggling to create genuine human connections. And that's why I also think that it's important for our main character to not be learning how to play guitar in a high school hobby band, but is instead shaping an existing talent in order to explore all of the facets of being a musician. Even when it comes to the pressure of actually trying to get an audience as a local band trying to meet quotas at a club, there's imperfections and there are messy parts and there's band drama and politics. But there's also tons of that humor and friendship and learning and persevering that comes along with the determination that the show must go on because that's rock and roll. It's more than just trying to make yourself into this caricature of of who you think you need to be in order to get fame or friends. And that's whether it's for a crowd of 3 people or 100 people or thousands of people on the internet. It's about having fun even if you suck, and that's honestly the coolest thing ever. So if you rock with this review, make sure you like and subscribe to join the Sistapunk family, and comment down below with your favorite awkward anime character. You can find all kinds of anime reviews over on my playlist, and you can find me on my socials, links in the description. Thanks so much for watching. Peace.